Welcome to Wellness Rebranded, the podcast for women ready to redesign their relationship with food, fitness, and feelings.
We are a registered dietitian, a personal trainer, and a mental health therapist. 3 experts, 1 mission.
To help you break free from diet culture, hustle culture, and emotional burnout, let's redefine what wellness really means on your terms.
Jukester. Fun, fast, fitness. Jukester's unpredictable motion trains you to see, think, and react faster than your competition. Jukester is a powerful coordination tool. It can be added to any exercise. Its patented movement strengthens the link between your body and brain. Jukester by Health and Fitness Technologies. Jukester. It's about to get real. Buy yours at jukester.com.
So, the new Fit for TV documentary about The Biggest Loser has come out, and I have a lot of thoughts. And I know these ladies do too.
You have a
Me
lot
too.
of thoughts, Tara, you sure?
I have so many thoughts. I think I'm especially particularly fired up about it because this TV show changed the landscape of fitness. You know, it wasn't just a TV show, it was like a cultural movement. And I think it's for the worse. And I'm upset about it. I'm mad about it. But I want to dive into it today with you guys.
So hold on, change it how? For those of us that maybe, didn't notice or are not aware.
Yeah, so The Biggest Loser was a TV show that started in 2004 and it was on the air until 2016, right? I personally did not watch much of it because I was in college during that time and I lived in Hawaii and TV was not a large part of my life at any point, but particularly back then. But essentially, what this show did was it gathered people who they self-identified as overweight or obese and then put them in really extreme challenges, extreme levels of fitness and dietary restriction, which, by the way, whole trigger warning for this episode, guys, and for the documentary, if you're going
I
to
was
watch
gonna say,
it,
and for the show.
know that it's all extremely triggering. So, FYI. But it essentially took personal trainers and had them berate and abuse and yell at these people, which is something that trainers should never be doing, FYI. And they monitored, they weighed them in, topless, shirtless weigh ins in front of millions of Americans every week. Like, ah,
I
But you
have so many thoughts.
but
Sorry,
you
Maria.
you you said that after the show came out, do you was there a change in in society in the US about how this topic was approached, or was there like a wave, an increase in weight loss or dieting products being sold?
yes. And the way we approached it was so different.
Mm.
Before The Biggest Loser, it was like, oh, January comes around. My goal is to lose a few pounds and get healthy. But now America and the world has watched these people lose 15, 20, 30 pounds a week on the show.
Yeah.
And they come into the gym expecting similar results, and it's just, first of all, it's completely dangerous and should never have happened.
Mm.
But it's also not likely to happen with normal people who are working and living their lives and not working out for 8 hours a day. And it kind of changed the way that gyms approached fitness, like, oh, we're doing the Biggest Loser challenge, like everybody will weigh you in at the beginning and then we're going to do all this stuff. And it wasn't to the same degree, of course, as the show, because people weren't living at the gym, except for those of us that work there, right? But they would have this set period of time and before and after pictures and weigh-ins and measurements and you know even corporate wellness. I worked at the community college as one of their fitness professionals during this time, and we were always running a Biggest Loser challenge. We always did stuff like that, and it was common for that to happen all over the country.
Mm. Mhm.
So I never watched the show. I mean, I don't think I ever even saw 10 minutes of the show when it was on the air. And so it was totally
shocking to me to watch the documentary and see what was being done on the show. I just honestly had absolutely no idea that that's how they were approaching that. And the two words that kept popping into my mind as I was watching was number one, abusive. I mean, that was downright abuse that was happening, in my opinion. And second was dehumanizing. I thought so many of the things and the way that they were treating those individuals was just dehumanizing. And it was a stark reminder to me of how much weight stigma and shame and fat bias is built into our culture. And also how, I would say a repeated theme of the documentary was, like, well, we're doing it for TV and we always have to kind of make it bigger and more interesting and keep people tuned in. And I think there was even that one comment about, well, Jillian Michaels leaned over to one of them and said, "You just made me a millionaire," or something. Maybe it was that first winner. And it just was screaming to me, kind of something that I'm always beating the drum on, which is diet culture is not about health or wellness. It is about profit. And I think anytime we're feeling badly about our bodies, we need to stop and remember, like, who's profiting off of these bad feelings? Because I promise you somebody is. And I think we forget that. And diet culture is really, really uh, good at making it seem as if it's about your health or your wellness, and it is about profit.
Diet culture loves to create flaws in our body, tell us that they are flaws, and then sell us the fix to them. For
Mhm.
sure. I was particularly horrified by like the very first episode of this, there was, the contestants doing this thing where they dropped them all off on a remote beach and had them run like a mile. And they were like, if you can't run a mile, you're not on the show. And in my mind as a trainer, I'm like, they are self-proclaimed like overweight, out of shape. Like none of them can run a mile, probably. Like many people cannot run a mile, and to just have them do so first thing in the heat without water is downright dangerous. And then we see, of course, three-quarters of the way through the mile, one of the contestants collapses and they make her crawl across the finish line. Like, and then she gets medevaced out.
Yeah,
You know,
it's literally shocking that that was allowed to happen.
horrifying.
Scary, yes. And again, I think something that you realize when watching this documentary, it wasn't about health,
Mm-mm.
right?
Mm-mm.
It was about entertainment, it was about competition, it was about many other things, but not health.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and it just also underscores the point of something else that I just am forever saying, which is weight loss behaviors and healthy behaviors or health promoting behaviors, they're not the same thing, right? We can
Right.
do take all sorts of extreme and frankly less extreme measures to produce weight loss that are not promoting your physical, mental, and emotional health, and in many cases, even detracting from them. And if there ever was a sort of billboard for diet culture, causing eating disorders and, body image struggles and all of the things, my goodness, that was it.
Even PTSD, somebody was talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And trauma. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
One of the things I try to never do as a personal trainer is like, I don't want my clients to barf.
Yeah.
If my clients are throwing up, it's like a pretty big red flag that we're either doing too much, we're either doing it too fast, or they fueled improperly before their session, which sometimes happens, right?
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
that seems like a bare minimum bar that you don't want to have happen. And yet they were kind of, in a way, encouraging it.
yeah. Like just in the documentary alone, we probably saw 10 people throw up.
Hmm.
And I haven't seen 10 people throw up in like the last 10 years of training. You know?
And I mean, sad enough, and that's one of the many reasons why I love we have this podcast is that I did tell you my story before how maybe it wasn't, I don't know, not that long, but 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I don't know, that I went to a trainer and that's what happened. Our very first session, she pushed me so hard that I don't know what happened to my body, but I spent 2 days in bed shaking. I've never experienced that before. That was the first and last, but something happened that my body got out of balance. And I even thought about going to the emergency room because it was a feeling that I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't and it was here where we live, a trainer, and she pushed and pushed and one more and three more, da, da, da. And you get the adrenaline at that moment and you think, oh, this is the right thing to do, this is a professional guiding this thing. Well, did I learn, right?
And can
Yeah,
we
that
just
sounds
say,
scary.
like, particularly with the type of client who's on The Biggest Loser, like, these people have not exercised in a very long time. You
Mhm.
have to start slow, or people will
No,
get injured, people will get hurt, and they did not do that.
but
And imagine the
even
trauma.
no, even if you exercise frequently, I mean, it has to be a personalized plan. We all not have the same, resistance or the same whatever to do these kind of exercises. So it's pretty dangerous. It's not.
And I would argue
Yeah,
that, like, nobody should be exercising 8 hours a day.
I
Well,
was
yeah.
just going to say that, like two things. One, just the trauma that those people must have experienced around movement. And I work with people every single day who, maybe in a less extreme way have a very fraught relationship with movement because of experiences like that in diet culture around movement. And then also, what was the point of that? The point of that was simply to produce weight loss and get a number on the scale. There's no way that that was setting someone up for long-term success. No
Mm-hmm.
one is going to go out into their life and exercise for 8 hours a day at that kind of intensity. And they even talked, a big theme of the show was at least many of the people that were in the documentary had regained most and more of the weight that they had lost. And what made me really sad watching that is that I think I think every single one of them was talking as if it was their fault, as if
Mm-hmm.
they did something wrong and were unable to maintain it. And the truth is that I mean, I think, didn't they say at one point they were eating, well, I actually don't want to say, but an excessively low number of calories and burning a level of calories that was tremendously higher than that. Their bodies were
Yeah.
literally in a semi or starvation state.
Yes.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, our bodies are wired to prevent us, right, from starving if at all possible. And so the there's a whole bunch of kind of psychological and physiological reactions that happen in our body to a state of semi-starvation, which frankly can happen with the number of calories just on many normal diets, let alone what they were doing on the show. But there are, enzymes get released. Well, first of all, your hunger and satiety hormones are deeply impacted by that. Enzymes get released that trigger fat storage in your body. Chemicals get released that change the taste of food. Chemicals get released that decrease your desire to move. There is a host of physiological things that are happening in response to semi starvation, under eating, that malnourishment state. And then psychologically, we talk all the time about the restrict binge cycle, right? The psychological effects of the deprivation that those people were under, and then the rebound overeating and binging that would happen afterwards. No, nobody talked about that, and it made me sad that to think that many of those people might still think that it was somehow, quote unquote, their fault, when
Mhm.
really, biologically, all of these things are happening in response to what they went through that is outside of their physiological control. And I think it's important to remember that when you experience something extreme like that, the day the show ends, it's not like your body just goes back to its default state. It takes a long time for your metabolism to heal and repair. And there's actually even a kind of well-known study in the anti-diet space on The Biggest Loser. And it's a small study, but I think it's the one they were referencing in the show, but they talked about it from a kind of a different angle. They tested their resting metabolic rate before the show and after the show, and it dramatically decreased. And it actually took, I believe it's up to 7 years to go back to where it was before the show. That's an incredibly long time and not something that, is within your personal control.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that study too, they also referenced that like the body's fullness hormones, like the leptin and the ghrelin, were affected. So not only are these people burning significantly less calories just as a matter of living, but they're extra starving too. They're hungry
Hmm.
all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
of course they're going to regain the weight even faster because their body's working against them now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
I
also, just like to anyone out there who's stuck in that dieting cycle, like, just remember what we're talking about. It's not your fault. These things are happening beyond your conscious control. It's why dieting doesn't work.
I also think it's really super sad because I felt like most of the contestants that they interviewed on this documentary were like, "Oh, I really wanted to do it because I had two young toddlers at home and I wanted to be healthy for my kids, or I wanted to be healthy for my family, for my life. I knew I was getting to a point where I needed to be healthier." Like you hear that over and over and over. But the goal of the show was not to make anybody healthy. The goal of the show was to get viewers.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually wrote that in my journal after I watched it. Was like there was at least a couple kids even on the show talking about watching their parents go through that experience, and all I kept thinking was that is the generational trauma of diet culture. Like think about the messages, and no shade to like the participants at all, because I understand the pressures of our culture, and they thought they were doing it for their health, and they had the best of intentions, but it's a powerful reminder that not just in the show but all of our kids absorb the messages, right? And
Yeah.
they got clear messages about bodies watching that.
Well, one of them was sharing how already at age 10, she was going with her grandmother or somebody to the Weight Watchers training or
Hmm.
sessions. And listening to women talk bad about their bodies. But also that's something that caught my attention. I know as a society we've done a lot of work around this, but there's a lot of work to do on how we still, give a lot of weight or a lot of focus on looks or weights or weight. If we're losing weight, gaining weight, we still go to these social events and people are like, oh, you lost weight or you gained
Hmm.
weight or what did you do? And then if you lost weight, is this public celebration, and all of a sudden, wow, we all see you. So it wasn't surprising to even see some people in the documentary saying, if I lose weight, I thought that if I lost weight, I was going to become a better mom, a better
Hmm.
wife. I was going to just be a great human being. So imagine everything that we put in that category, or how we associate weight with our own value as human beings, and what we're worth and what we're capable of doing or seeing by others is pretty interesting.
And the idea that it's the cure all for what ails us, right? And it's undeniable that living in a smaller body, life is easier in our
Mhm.
culture, right? That's an unfortunate result of the weight stigma and fat phobia and all the terrible kind of beliefs around that. But it doesn't, I always think of, I don't know who said this quote, but it's kind of like wherever you go, there you are. And it's sort of like, yes, it's easier, but also if your relationship was suffering before, or if you weren't confident in your abilities as a mom, or if you had low self-esteem, or kind of any of those things, like simply losing weight doesn't actually fix those things.
Right.
I think for
And
me, I'm
false prompts.
particularly irritated by this show because the way that Bob and Jillian were training them is like deeply unethical.
Mm.
And all of our certifications, I hold like 17 fitness certifications, and all of them have like an ethics and morality clause that is much like being a doctor, right? Like do no harm, that kind of thing. And they were clearly harming their clients, and then they stepped way out of their scope of practice by
Yeah.
prescribing like stackers and yellow jackets and caffeine pills. Like, that is
Even
something
just the
trainers
diet stuff.
should never do. Yes, and it is against our code of ethics to even go into specific diet plans as well.
And
So,
they were going against the medical advice of that doctor, which it is shocking. And I
mhm.
think perhaps more shocking, I'm not really sure which is more shocking, but they weren't regretful or apologetic, or they stand by everything that they did. And that,
That shook me to my core when Bob said
yeah,
that. He was like, I stand by everything I did. I was like, how can you stand by that? Like, do you not
yeah,
see the harm that you've caused? All under the guise of health. Like, get out of here.
yeah.
Whoever they're certified with should have definitely stripped them of their certs.
And can we talk about the heart attack for a second? So I don't wish a heart attack
Yes.
upon anyone at all. And I'm very sorry that that happened to him, but it was a powerful reminder that you can be healthy or unhealthy in any size body, right? Here's this man who,
Lives
is
and breathes
clearly
fitness.
very fit, lives and breathes fitness, and he had a heart attack. And when we make assumptions about people's health based on their body shape and size, it's not helpful, right? And and it's not helpful both ways. Like, of course, it's not helpful for people who live in larger bodies who aren't getting, sometimes the deep, authentic, weight neutral care that they need. And people in smaller bodies, things can get missed because people, it's not on their radar, certain things that they associate with
Hmm.
weight. And so it's just, there's a lot of unintentional harm that gets done in a medical system that is so heavily all about weight.
Yeah, let's talk for a minute about how there was no plan on including any emotional work through all this. And that
Yeah.
blows my mind. I've said it before how, even today, mental health therapists, we have to fight so much to even bring emotional health and mental health into conversations. Seeing the documentary now and looking back, is like how not even including a mental health professional that was there to also protect the integrity of these people. These coaches trying to do deep emotional work without any certification to do that. Some participants sharing how they were triggered for trauma they have experienced before that in some way contributed to the situation that they were now. And then there we were just focusing on meals and exercise and no emotional work behind. Like, we human beings are like, how why keep trying to separate our mental and emotional health from anything else? It's
Mhm.
impossible. It's connected. It's there and will always be there. So that was, nerve-wracking to watch. And making emotional turmoil or emotional struggles of the participants a way to sell the show as well. Because one thing
Yeah.
we know about these reality shows, and I hate the word drama, but one thing we know is that if there's no drama, people don't watch it. So how much also the message is, the more drama we watch, or the more drama people have, the more interesting or profitable it is. Mm, not good.
Along those same lines, like, I remember Tracy saying, I didn't know I was the villain till after I came home and the show aired. So,
Yeah.
like, aside from all the physical, mental trauma that she went through at the ranch, now she's coming home, it airs, and she finds out that they've edited it to cast her as like the villain. And
Mhm.
now she's getting death threats and terrible comments. And like, guys, here's my pro tip, like, never read the comments. Never read the comments because it's not going to do anything for your mental health that's good. So,
Yeah, and I think, Maria, you bring up such an important point that, of course, mental health is health, and they treated it extremely irresponsibly on the show. But it's a reminder of when you want to improve your health, and the only thing you think of is, or the primary thing that you think of is weight loss, you always have to kind of take into account your physical, mental, and emotional well being. And you may lose weight with a certain approach, but at what potential cost to your mental, emotional, or frankly, often physical well being? And it's just like a reminder again of whole health, right? It's that Venn diagram of like, and frankly, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, right? Financial, like it's all your whole health and it's all important. And you don't want to kind of sacrifice one at the expense of another. Like
Mm-hmm.
you got to find that balance is a hard word, right? Because balance is hard, but that kind of sweet spot in the middle where you're at least honoring all of them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also super fascinating that they chose this particular doctor because he had had NFL experience. And in the NFL, like they're not playing to be healthy, right? They play to win.
Hmm.
So if people need a little extra shot of painkillers before the game, or if they need, a little unethical here and unethical there, like this guy's no stranger to doing those kind of things. So even though the documentary painted him in like a okay-ish light, I definitely don't think he's off the hook either.
Well, he
He should have
stayed,
he should have
right? I
been more
mean,
involved. He should have been more vocal. He should have been the one who says, "Absolutely freaking not. We are not doing this thing with this population." And that should have been the end of it, but
Yeah, but
he didn't.
social pressure is a real thing. And once you're in a set environment that is creating, you feel the pressure of how much money is creating, and then, they sugarcoat it of how it's helping many other people to feel motivated back then, all these, you know, what was happening with the show. I see how it can be hard to speak your mind, or sometimes you even fall into the trap that is not that bad, that is really helping these people. And that's the thing. There has been so many studies that could explain even many things that happen there, of how you're put in environments where there's a lot of social, physical, and psychological pressure, and you conform, you follow, and whatever the majority is doing, you do it as well, because then you're gonna suffer some kind of consequences. But because remember, there were many, it was interesting to see that there were many participants that say, I lost the weight, I lived everything I experienced, and still think it was the worst mistake I've made in my life. Now looking back, is was it really worth it? Like, was I thin and then maybe emotionally and psychological scarred? Was it even worth it? Right? So, because it wasn't a whole package thing. It,
Mm-hmm.
I think like one takeaway for me is just it's a tremendous responsibility to work with individuals to support their health.
Mhm,
And I know all of us take it really seriously. And yeah, I mean, I guess we could just say that. But there are a lot of people out there that don't. And it reminds me, like, I'm thinking of all the kind of influencers out there that are touting products and approaches and, you know, sharing things with it that they're doing, and they have absolutely no business doing it. And so just a plug for anyone out there, do your research, and
Mm-hmm.
just whatever you're looking for, make sure you're getting the support from credentialed, licensed, regulated health professionals. Really matters.
Yeah. I think it's
mhm,
a good time to look at like what are the red flags, right?
mhm,
Like I beat this drum all the time too, is like if you leave your workout feeling worse than when you started it, that might be a red flag.
mhm,
If your trainer is yelling at you, berating you, abusing you, or more commonly, maybe just disinterested in you.
mhm,
Like, that's a red flag. If they're
mhm,
easily distracted, they're on their phone the whole session, red flag. Like, you pay
mhm.
a lot of money to have them focus on you for that time. So they should be focused on you for that time.
Yeah.
Instead we should be looking for like sustainable habits, supportive communities, compassion. I just talked to someone today about
Respect is the word that
right.
comes to mind.
Right. I talked to someone
Yeah.
today about kind of like filling in as a guest speaker every now and then for their community who is using like GLP-1s and they need exercise guidance. And as I was chatting with this person, they said, "Oh, we hired this guy. He seemed so great. He has a PhD in exercise physiology." But the members would like cry about whatever their thing they were going through. And he'd be like, "Okay, well, push-ups." And I'm like, "What? What?" Like someone cries and your response is to have them do push-ups? Like, come on.
Yeah, for me, a takeaway and a reminder is that if there's anything that we're doing that is sacrificing our own mental and emotional well-being in the way, it is something to reconsider, right? Because it again, it's another red flag if we have to hurt or damage our emotional well-being while we try that, whatever it is that we're doing.
And for me, I guess a few red flags are just in general, if you're starting out any new approach to your health, if you're doing something that you aren't going to be able to sustain long term, then that's not really the best approach, right? That is like that's not going to be helpful long term. So think about how you're starting and how you can go on. Of course, consider your relationship with food and your relationship with your body, and that, you know, however, whatever you're choosing to do is impacting your physical, mental, and emotional well being. And also, just huge red flag to be careful who you're taking your nutrition guidance from and what or how much they're telling you to eat. There's a lot of bad advice out there.
Mm.
And I guess I just was sitting here thinking as we were talking, I mean, it is not often that the three of us stop the presses on everything we're doing to jump in and make an emergency podcast recording, right? Like the three of us
Yeah.
literally dropped everything and are recording this at 8:45 at night because it struck such just an emotional and professional chord with all of us. And yeah, I just wanted to point that out. It's like our podcast is the antithesis of everything they said in that show.
Yeah, 100%. Like we
Mhm.
could not be more different. I think like if the biggest loser really taught us anything, it's that health isn't a spectacle and your body shouldn't be up for like a public debate. And you don't owe the world a before and after picture. You owe yourself a life that's worth living, you know?
Mic drop, Tara. You been
Yes, I
hanging
was
on to
gonna
that?
say.
Did you just come up with that in the heat of the moment?
Am I coming for your title as the smart one? We'll never
Yeah,
know.
certainly the mic dropper of the pod. I think we should just end it there. Well, and I will say if you are looking for compassionate, weight neutral, evidence based guidance, come reach out to me. I take insurance now. I would love to chat with you and work with you. Tara, I know you are working with individuals. Maria, your emotional fitness studio has so many resources. You do so much speaking virtually and locally on these topics. And we are here and we would love to help you.
If you like this episode, please don't forget to share it, download it, communicate with us. You can do it also through our Instagram account, Wellness Rebranded.
Yeah, come join our health and healing with intuitive eating community as well. We actually have a really interesting thread going on with people sharing their takeaways from this episode, and we'd love to hear from you too.
Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with me outside of this podcast, you can find me on Instagram at coaching_therapist.
I'm Elizabeth. You can find me at Elizabeth Harris Nutrition or in my Facebook group, Health and Healing with Intuitive Eating.
And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Tara De Leon Fitness. Guys, if you loved this episode or any of our other episodes, we would love it if you would leave us a review on Apple Podcast. It really, really helps us get the non-diet word out to the rest of the world. So please leave us a review.
Yes, thank you.